Hi, this is Galit Goldfarb. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today I want to talk about whether lectins are dangerous for our health or not. There is some dietary advice and a few diets that support the avoidance of lectins in the diet to prevent leaky gut syndrome, skin disorders, and some allergies. But is this really true? In this video, I will examine the effects of lectins on our health and determine whether they are dangerous to our health and what we can do about them. But to begin with, what are lectins and where are they found? Well, lectins are proteins that bind to carbohydrates. And lectins are present almost throughout nature and in animals, plants, and microorganisms, and are necessary for their survival. Now, this means that lectins are found almost in all foods, and therefore they are unavoidable from a dietary standpoint. Now, there are foods that have lectins in higher concentrations, and 6 food groups that contain the most lectins include tubers, grains, also processed grains, beans, dairy foods if the milking animal was fed on grains rather than on grass, nightshade vegetables, which include tomatoes, potatoes, and aubergines, and genetically modified foods because lectins are often added into the DNA of genetically modified crops to enhance pest and fungal resistance. Now, lectins have been around in the foods we've been eating for over 2 million years. We would have never made it this far as a species if our bodies could not disable lectins or use them to our advantage. Now, our body, in fact, also produces lectins. Yes, that's right. And in our body, the lectins have many functions. They help cells bind together. The lectins protect the cell by helping it differentiate between itself and foreign pathogens or intruding cells. And lectins also produce immune cells like antibodies. Lectins also help the body eliminate foreign pathogens and compounds from the body. Therefore, lectins are considered antimicrobial. They capture the microorganisms with their stickiness and can also inhibit cancer cells and therefore are vital for our health. Now, in plants, the lectins form a protection mechanism that is not dependent on immune function. It serves like something like the skin that protects. It's a protective barrier against pathogens and people that want to consume them. Now, the hype about lectins being dangerous to our health began in 1999 following food poisoning that affected a large number of hospital workers after eating a meal containing red kidney beans. The investigation found no pathogenic bacteria in the food, but they did find that the beans had very high levels of the lectin phytohemagglutinin. And another study in the UK looked at the incidence of red kidney bean poisoning between 1976 and 1989, where 50 incidents were reported and 9 events that included nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, and developed within a few hours of consuming the beans. Now, these events were confirmed to have very high levels of the lectin hemagglutinin in the beans. Now, the high levels of these glutenins in the beans were caused because the beans were not cooked properly. So let's talk about the adverse effects of consuming raw lectin-rich foods. Just like other animals, humans are very vulnerable to the toxicity of lectins, and concentrated amounts can cause digestive issues and other health problems because lectins are not degraded by neither stomach acid nor our enzymes, making them virtually very resistant to any type of digestion. And by consuming raw lectin-rich foods, the stickiness of lectins allows them to bind to tissues that are more sensitive to their sticky effects, such as nerve and connective tissue, and the intestinal wall and the bladder. And the lectins eventually cause damage to these tissues to which they attach themselves. Now, lectins from food enter the body through the gut wall by causing tiny lesions in the gut wall. And this damage to the gut wall may lead to unwanted substances and bacteria to penetrate through the gut wall and enter into the bloodstream. And once these toxins enter into the body, including lectins, they may also inhibit the absorption of different vitamins, causing nutritional deficiencies. It is suggested that lectin levels increase in processed grains because by removing the seed coat, which is about 10% of the grain, and this influences the concentration of lectins as per a weight of the unit basis. So this is why actually processed grains have more lectins on a unit per weight basis. Now let's talk about disabling lectins. I just mentioned that our bodies could disable lectins. Well, monosaccharides, simple sugars, and oligosaccharides, which are short chains of sugar molecules, between 2 and 10 sugar molecules that we get from foods in our diet, will disable lectins by binding to them. This binding prevents their attachment to the carbohydrates within our cell membranes and other tissues, and prevents damage also to the gut wall. These saccharides are considered soluble dietary fiber and include short chains of fructose molecules, which are known as Fructo-oligosaccharides, which are found in many vegetables, and also short chains of galactose molecules, which are known as galacto-oligosaccharides. These compounds cannot be digested in the human small intestine, and instead they pass through to the large intestine. These saccharides also promote the growth of BIFIDOBACTERIA, which is a gut bacteria that is very beneficial to our health, and also it helps break down lectins. So, solutions. The best way to reduce the adverse effects of lectins is not by avoiding foods that are rich in lectins, but by consuming high amounts of soluble dietary fiber in the diet. Foods that are rich in fructo-oligosaccharides and FOS include chicory, Jerusalem artichokes, leeks, and all types of onions, as well as asparagus and burdock. Now, foods that are rich in galacto-oligosaccharides include soybeans. Another excellent way to reduce the adverse effects of lectins is by soaking foods. From the list that I gave you of the 6 foods that contain the most lectins, soak these foods overnight and then cook them in boiling water. And this eliminates almost all lectin activity. Now, one very interesting fact is that while raw kidney beans contain between 20,000 and 70,000 hemagglutinating units, when they are cooked, they will only have about 200 to 400 hemagglutinating units, which is a major difference. Now, lentils, on the other hand, do not need more than 10 minutes of soaking in boiling water. They don't need to be soaked overnight. So just soak them in boiling water for about 10 minutes before cooking, which removes all lectins. Now, a particularly beneficial type of cooking method to remove lectins from grains, for example, and also preserves the most nutrients in food is pressure cooking. Pressure cooking can cook foods at very, very high temperatures. And so this is why it's one of the best ways to inactivate all lectins in grains and beans. Now, many cultures also germinate or ferment these foods to improve their digestibility and nutrient value while reducing their lectin toxicity. In fact, gluten is substantially degraded during germination, and also vitamin C and vitamin E and beta-carotene that are hardly detectable in dry grains. When you germinate them, these concentrations of these antioxidant vitamins increases very significantly. Okay, so let's summarize. There is no need to remove lectin-rich foods, including root vegetables, grains, and beans from your diet. These foods are very, very beneficial to our health and provide a wealth of fiber and so many nutrients, and they are needed for the survival and thriving of a healthy microbiome. These foods that have supported our species for eons and continue to do so are very, very important for our health. And so instead of removing these foods that contain high amounts of lectins, just ensure that you are getting sufficient intake of oligosaccharides, including fructo-oligosaccharides and galacto-oligosaccharides from your diet. And I just mentioned the foods that have them, that are rich in these oligosaccharides. Also aim to pre-soak your foods, especially grains and beans, and cook them properly before consumption. And if possible, even sprout them for their additional nutritional benefits. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and ring the note and press the notification button so that you can have notifications whenever I upload a video. And if you want more health and lots of information, including programs that you can join to help you lose weight and achieve optimal health, visit my website at www.thegorilladiet.com. Thank you very much.